There is interest from traditional collectors, and it's easier actually to introduce them to this new medium on lower value works. I don't think it's a great entry point for a first NFT for a traditional collector to go on the 6 million worth NFT. But that's why also we really wanted in that sale to have every price point. It goes from 2,000 to 6 million in that sale, so everyone could participate step by step, sales after sale, that we educate a bit more the existing traditional collectors who are curious about it, and every time there is also new ones coming in and want to understand. But there is still a lot of barrier, and I think it's also the ecosystem that will evolve over time and become a bit more friendly for them in order to get into it.
Welcome back to the NFT Now podcast. I'm Matt Medved, and today's guest is Michael Bouhanna, Vice President, Contemporary Art Specialist, and Head of Digital Art and NFTs at Sothebys. He's coming fresh off of the $11 million Grails Part II Sale, featuring works acquired by the now-defunct hedge fund, Three Arrows Capital. Split into two parts and totaling more than $17 million, the auctions included notable results like the $6.2 million sale of Dmitri Cherniak's Ringers number 879, nicknamed the Goose, and have injected some much-needed optimism into the current bear market. We're going to get the full story from him and dive into the intersection of the traditional and digital art markets and more. Before we do, I want to encourage you to sign up for our weekly newsletter at nftnow.com. Each week, we distill everything happening in the markets and in the space into actionable insights straight to your inbox. Without any further ado, Michael Bouhanna from Sothebys. Michael, on the NFT Now podcast, super excited to have you. How you doing, man?
I'm very good. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me.
Well, I know it's been an eventful few weeks for you, and we have a lot to get into, but why don't we start off just like briefly tell us a bit about your background. How did you get into digital art and then NFTs?
I've been at Sothebys for a while now, for 8 years, mainly in Paris and London, as a contemporary art specialist. So I was really in charge. I had 3 sales a year. I was in charge and heading it and looking after business getting, expertise, pricing, and sales strategy. I've done that for many years in London, and then I got into NFTs through seeing what's on social media, I remember on Instagram, Twitter, and I got very curious about I think I've tapped many people on Google, what's an NFT? And it took me some time to understand actually the technology behind. And then I discovered, that was at the end of 2020, I discovered very interesting artists, especially some conceptual artists who were doing some very interesting works. And the market also at that time started to pick up. So I brought the first NFT sales in June 21 at Sothebys. That was natively digital, very curated. We wanted to educate people to it, the different movements. It was very successful. At that time, we actually achieved the record for a CryptoPunk and showed some artists who are today some of the top artists in the digital art space. And we started from there. So it became a real passion for me to be working in this new, very innovative space. And so with the help and the resource I was given at Sothebys, I've been able to build this new department and put a lot of effort into what came next.
Amazing. Well, obviously, made big headlines with the Grails auction, did 11 million in the depths of a bear market. I think exceeded a lot of people's expectations. Why don't we talk a little about the backstory? Because that's such an interesting collection, right? What's the backstory on the Grails auction? How did Sotheby's actually secure the opportunity to auction off these assets that were originally with Three Arrows Capital? It was Vincent Van Gogh had curated them for Starry Night.
Yeah, so I think many people in the community were aware of first the fail of 3AC and that their NFT collection were subject to be liquidated, and then the liquidators publicly announced on the advancement on the liquidation, and so we had the chance to enter in contact with them and at the end they decided to work with us, I think for many reasons. First of all, like at Sothebys, it's really, we are like very specialized in selling sometimes some very complex and important collections, both in volume, in quality, and in diversity. And so it was very appealing for them that we could propose a very global multi-channel sales, and also with all the resources we've been able to allocate it to it. And so they've decided to work with us because we've been the best candidate to achieve the highest results on their behalf. And I think the past sales like really proved that it doesn't even feel like a liquidation, but more like a celebration of the works and artists who are in this collection.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was obviously a lot of buzz around it, a lot of attention on it. What were your expectations for the sale going into it?
I think the moment we announced that we were going to take care of this collection, and we unveiled a little bit of our strategy, we received a lot of interest of different parties interested in acquiring different works in the collection. I wanted to make sure they will be aware of the next steps and be able to participate. So from that moment, I knew that it was very attended to come up in the market, especially some of the top highlights of the collection. And I think what we've seen also in the market the past 3 months before actually we started the 3AC collections, it's the market for generative art especially like softened a lot. I think it was mainly the result of like some of the top tier collectors waiting, knowing that these will come up in the market and keeping their liquidity for it. So then when we announced it and we started to resell them, we started to see this liquidity coming back in the market for high quality works. It's very reassuring for the market. It feels way more organic than what we could feel actually from different headlines. And actually, I've had like great discussions with both traditional and crypto NFT collectors about their commitment for some of the works they purchased.
Yeah, excited to dive into that too. I'm curious too, like, what do you think are some of the factors that really made this auction a success? I mean, obviously we saw the goose all over social media, right? The memes, the having fun with that, all of that definitely like was like the enduring like image and kind of like the memorable like face of it. But obviously a lot of amazing pieces sold. So just curious, like, as looking back on it, with your expertise, like, what do you think made it successful?
I think there is many different components that put together, like included in this success. First is the strategy to really presenting a fine art sale. Really move away from not the NFTs, but from selling just NFTs somehow. But I don't like to say that because this is NFTs, but it really needs to be treated like fine art and to be presented as is and discussed the way we talk about it also to collectors. It's important to talk the same way we would talk about like a proper fine art work. Then there is I think the live auction. It's something that really talked a lot also to the core NFT community, because it's like offering us like a great experience, live experience of a very traditional way of selling some masterpieces. And so it was like amazing to have more than 150 people in the room, more than 20 people with a paddle ready to jump on some bids on the phone, online. Like, it was very vibrant and feeling like a traditional sales and a market full of like very passionate collectors like looking to acquire some great pieces. Then there is, I think, like the celebration of generative art we've made through the narrative, the curation. We can't deny that, and it was mainly art blocks works, and we can't deny that generative art has a long history coming from the 1960s. And we need really, every time we speak about these generative artworks on the blockchain, to put them in context of the 20th and 21st century art story. And then one of the most important components, and since the beginning with anything NFT related, is the community. And we've had like great support from the community of artists, of collectors, of amateurs, and of the generative and digital art. And that I'm very thankful for that, because it helped in making this really like a celebrate. The real challenge when I started to pitch and to offer these works was like really to turn the narrative into from a liquidation, where actually at the very beginning many collectors thought they could like get a big discount in purchasing their work, but actually a real like celebration and ensuring that we sell them for the full price in today's market. And that I think was really successful through the last sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I remember that a lot of people were thinking, is this going to be a fire sale? But clearly it was not, right? And that's really impressive. So, I know you just talked a bit about the generative art element. I'd love to dive into that a little bit deeper too. Like, why do you believe that generative art, and in particular art blocks, as you mentioned, a lot of these are very notable art blocks collections like Ringers, Fidenza, those really like notable curated collections. Why do you feel that they're being viewed by the market as having long-term value and significance?
I'm really fascinated about generative art, and even personally, I collect generative art, and not just like on the blockchain, but also like from the 1960s. And when we look at the history of art, we realize that every new movement comes from a innovation. Either it's a societal innovations, or the industrialization in the late 19th century with the Impressionism. Thanks to the industrialization, because, for example, they've been able to, it allowed artists actually to use some paint tube. We need to imagine that before paint tubes, they had to mix the oil and the pigment together. It could happen only in the closed studio, because on the open air, it would flew away with the stream, etc. So with the paint tube, actually, the artists were able to go outside and paint directly in front of their subject in a very instantaneous way. And that's created some new aesthetics, including with the Impressionism. So, and then when we look, we go a bit further, we discover that the computer, and we can't deny that the computer is in our society one of the biggest innovation. It changed life of everyone, and it has to impact very drastically the art. And it did a little bit in the 1960s when first artists started to use like Vera Molnar in a very experimental way computers, and even like back then in 1968 when she goes to a university who had the only computer in Paris where she could make some algorithm and create some visual art. People were thinking she was crazy, and that had like, it was not art because it was made by an autonomous machine. But then she insisted, and through her career for Vera Molnar or other artists, they've been always following the latest innovation in this technology they were using, going from in the 70s when the computer started to have a screen. It changed completely because they were able to see directly the rendering of their work live. Then with the web art in the 90s, artists like Raphael Rosendahl was able to make some live rendering of his work on a web browser and sell the domain name actually to the buyer of the work. That's like innovations that are picked up by the history of art already, exhibited in museums, but never really been very successful if we think of them on the market side. And the reason is that it was not very easy for collectors to collect these works either in the digitally native way or when it was like on a TV, on VHS. Like it was not very sustainable and very difficult to for the conservation. It was very challenging for collectors. So we see that in museums mainly. But then with the NFTs, I think it's the most important, the blockchain, and with the long form, it resulted in the long form generative art. It's the biggest innovations in the 60s and the use of computer, because it brought also together like a whole new generation of generative artists and a whole new generation of collectors and amateurs. And we are at the very beginning of it. There is a lot of education needed, but for this reason and the long history legacy it has, I think it's like a real new movement happening really in the contemporary art and conceptual art or minimalism, etc.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the history there. That's really great because some people are surprised to learn that generative art and even digital art have existed long before NFTs, obviously, and that's some great context there. Obviously, Punk 6529 won the goose. Obviously a very, very crypto native collector there. But I heard reports too that there are a lot of traditional collectors that were in the mix, that were bidding, that were the underbidders, and that bid on some of the auctions. And so, just curious, what level of interest are you seeing from traditional art collectors around NFTs?
There is a lot of it's hard to say a lot, but there is interest from traditional collectors, and it's easier actually to introduce them to this new medium on lower value works. I don't think it's a great entry point for a first NFT for a traditional collector to go on the 6 million worth NFT. But that's why also we really wanted in that sale to have every price point. It goes from 2,000 to 6 million in that sale, so everyone could participate. And every sale like this, it's a new occasion to have discussions with this traditional collector. So it's really step by step, sales after sale, that we educate a bit more the existing traditional collectors who are curious about it. And every time there is also new ones coming in and want to understand. With generative art, the discussions are a bit easier because all the history and legacy I told you about, and they are very, sometimes they have a lot of knowledge already of the 1960s, the conceptual art, etc. So it resonates for them, and they understand the value of these new works. But there is still a lot of barrier. And I think it's also the ecosystem that will evolve over time and become a bit more friendly for them in order to get into it. It goes with the connection to the crypto in terms of value, but also in terms of culture sometimes. It's the difficulty of understanding how they can enjoy it physically. That's why the exhibition we've done was really trying to showcase that we can present works and offering them the same aura of a proper work of art, because there are some collectors who collect some masterpieces of the 20th century and the contemporary art, and they putting a TV beside a very nice Basquiat canvas doesn't really work on an interior. But having a proper museum quality frame, printed, maybe signed by the artist, I think then there is something tangible to which they're sensitive. So it's not for everyone. There is some digitally native artists or collectors that are very attached to that it stays in the native format. But I think it comes down to taste and whatever the collector wants to see it. But this presentation helped actually in getting new collectors interested in it. But yeah, I think for us, and that's why every sale you see we are doing, it's also an occasion to educate more people through the overview page, the article public, the educational material, and I think it's really well done somehow, so far in the way that traditional collectors are very receptive to it.
Yeah, I actually love the way that you guys displayed it. I know that there were some people on Twitter who were had some opinions or takes on that, being like, why aren't these being shown digitally? All that. They're always. But I actually thought that by presenting them physically in there, especially when you think about it, the traditional art audience, you're bringing this into a display window or of understanding that they already feel comfortable in, right? And they're, rather than seeing this as this is something else altogether, this is art, period. It just happens to be digital in nature, and it lives digitally, but it can also live physically. And especially for the static ones, like the Fidenza behind you, or the ringers, I think it actually it looked really nice. It looked very highbrow, top shelf, like you said, museum quality. And so that's, I think, a really interesting angle in terms of making this more presentable and palatable to a more established traditional collector.
No, exactly. And I think it's easier than asking them actually to come towards appreciating the art just on their phone, or asking them to do a metaverse. They won't get into it, or it will take time, maybe more for the metaverse or the digital way of appreciation of art to evolve and upgrade. But I think we need to do a step also to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember early on in, I think it was in 2021, when some of my friends in the art world were starting to get more interested in the NFTs, I would use Fidenza and some of these other like ones to show them to be like, hey, like, you know, like especially generative art is capable of creating really beautiful results. Like if like a Fidenza looks great, whether it's printed out or on your computer screen or in like an immersive metaverse and the like. And I think it's just also like one of the things that's interesting is like, you know, there's obviously built-in levels of curation in the traditional art world that don't necessarily exist yet in this space, right? It's like, it's like you look at, most people only see like art that has been selected by galleries or auction houses or things like that, and has gone through the traditional kind of like filtering process in the traditional world. Whereas like in NFTs, it was like kitchen sink, everything's there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so like helping people understand that there is really high quality art being made in the space as well.
No, exactly.
So I want to also think about the other side of it. What level of interest are you seeing for traditional art from crypto native collectors? Because I do think that collecting NFTs like and getting into generative art like has kind of created a whole new generation or class of like of collectors who are now starting to learn more about the art world. And I'm curious if you're seeing that at all in terms of like more traditional contemporary art sales.
Yeah, we are a little bit seeing like a crossover of digitally native or NFT collectors buying into other categories at Sothebys, from watch, luxury to fine art. And we had, for example, like the example of Justin Sun, who bought 70 million Giacometti in 21. And yes, I think like this new community, new clients, because even with last sale, even though we've been for 2 years and a half in this market, like with last sale, we had 60% of new clients to Sothebys among the bidders and the buyers, and they get to understand a bit more what is Sothebys, how does it work, all the different categories we are excelling at, and if you go through our website, there is always something for sale. It goes from watches, wine, fine art, old master, design, and there is some great pieces at every prices. So I think it's once they get introduced to it, there is an appetite for buying some of the best quality with the insurance, also of buying something that is guaranteed in terms of quality, of expertise, etc. So there is some interest in these different categories as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I'm curious too, like at a large, like of a macro level, like what do you feel are still some of the biggest misconceptions around NFTs from the traditional art world?
I think many traditional collectors who are not following that day by day, they are looking at the headlines in the press only. They are still, and I had these calls where as I talk about work for an artist and advise them to look into it, and they say, the NFT, it's like, I'm not very into this bored ape, this monkey images. And I think that's like this image of the 21 bull market where there is very low quality work selling for millions, where definitely is today definitely playing against us in somehow. So I feel that we are today in a very new market. I don't even like to say that we are in a bear market because I don't think getting into a new bull market with no connection from price to quality is sustainable or good in terms of getting credit and onboarding some serious collectors. But I think we are just in a very new market that is very niche, and there is some very passionate collectors, amateurs, commentators, and artists working into this new niche market, this new ecosystem, and it will take time, bit by bit, like to actually get more people to be interested in it. And that way it'll be way more sustainable and like very similar to the way we interact with traditional art.
Makes sense. And I know you kind of touched on it, but what are some of those things? What are some of the things that like you're looking ahead to? Like what do we need to see happen? Like what are some benchmarks or some milestones that we need to hit or in order to bring the traditional art world more into the space from a level of understanding and acceptance?
Yeah, it's very, I would talk only on the very specific digital art, because NFT, it's like many other things, and there is other challenge to bring like the wider audience to different categories NFTs can play a role into. But with digital art, I think it's what I said before about the connection to crypto. For example, I had a threshold collector who tell me, okay, if I buy this ringer, not the goose, like another one, is it like for me a double bet in crypto because I don't want to be associated or I don't want to get into crypto? It's fair enough. It's not for everyone to get into crypto, but he wants to get into the art. He loves the art, etc. So I think the connection it has today, still today, with the crypto will always to be a barrier for threshold collectors. I don't know what it means and how it should be. Like, should be completely indexed into USD. It's like it's also going against a lot of like foundation of how this was created. It's on blockchain. It's like it comes from the crypto culture. It's like thanks to all that. So it's I don't know how it will happen, but that's one of the barriers I see from threshold collectors. And also like there needs to be some work into the display. There is great solutions today, but it's not there at all. And I could see in the 3-5 years having like a proper digital display that fits into threshold collectors' interior. And they will be more inclined in getting into purchasing NFTs.
Love that. And obviously, there was a lot of support and celebration in the space. After the sale, obviously, I think it was widely seen as a great result, especially considering it was in the middle of a bear market or a new market, whatever we want to call it, right? And I saw, there were a number of collectors, commentators who actually were kind of hailing that, Sothebys has come a long way when it comes to digital art. Since those early sales. And I'm curious, what do you attribute that progress to?
Yeah, I think we've been in the NFT space for 2 years and a half, and we have a big track record of very successful sales. The first natively digital, we achieved 12 million, including a record for a CryptoPunk alien. Then we've continued this marquee sale somehow of very curated sales where we unveil different movements every time. I think also the community is very is expecting a lot from Sothebys, and I think that's right because we are one of the largest company today, very interacting into the digital art space, and the most important is really just to focus onto quality presentation and give back to the community somehow. And I think with this last sale, with the royalties, that we went really counter current in doing the royalties. But for us, there were never a debate if the royalty should be paid or not to the artist. And I was actually surprised how fast this core value got completely erased. But I think that, and paired with really trying to celebrate this whole generative art community, is the key for at least a social media success, because then it's rely on the market if it's a success or not.
Yeah, I love the fact that you included the royalties element, because I think that really speaks to this new paradigm that I think is possible with the blockchain. Obviously, it's we at NFT Now, we're all about empowering creators. And so, we've been very, very, very vocally in favor of creator royalties and the like. And like you said, it was a bit surprising to see how quickly things moved in a different direction with Blur and all of that. But I do think that ultimately, different communities are going to enforce their own values, right? And so just tell me a little bit about the decision to do the royalties. And because obviously that's something that in the United States, at least, it's not necessarily a norm in the traditional art world, but it's something that's been talked about for quite some time. And it's one of the reasons why I think a lot of artists were drawn to Web3 and the NFT space. So tell us a little bit about the rationale there.
Yeah, I think it's a wider decision we made also on our secondary marketplace to enforce royalty, even if it makes us a bit less competitive against other marketplaces that doesn't honor the royalties. And for that sale, also it was very important to honor them, to the creators. to be in line with our values toward this. And I think it was very appreciated by the artist, and it helped in also getting their help when we needed maybe to have them sharing about their works, get their collectors to be aware about the sale. It was really like a joint effort to raise awareness about the sale coming up.
No, great point. Look, I know earlier this year, Sothebys did receive some criticism for the natively digital Glitchism show that did not include female artist representation. I know Sothebys subsequently relaunched the show as Glitch Beyond Binary with a more equitable lineup. What were some of the lessons learned from that?
Yeah, I'm sure you saw we've done many sales before this glitch sale, and every time we are very careful in representing underrepresented communities, female artists, and even just before the sale, 2 weeks before the glitch sale, we've done a sale dedicated to female artists working with Pussy Riot and Unicorn DAO. And with this glitch sale, we missed a big part of the how underrepresented communities and female artists are very important actually in this movement, and more than other movements actually. We are very thankful that the community picked up the issue, and you saw that in 2 weeks' time it was relaunched with a whole new narrative curation, including many female, transgender, non-binary artists who've been very key in the evolution of this glitch movement. And so I'm very thankful again, like we talked about the importance of the community and the success of our sales. I think they helped us a lot in making us rework the curation. And it was very important for us to listen to them. Yeah, also just to add, because I think it's an issue that we see in the digital art space, but it's also the same issue we see in traditional art, and I think it's a common responsibility of every actor acting in this space to be very careful in making sure they always respect in their curation a fair and equitable representation of every communities.
Yeah, like you said, there's still a massive gender gap in the art market at large, traditional, digital, NFT, and beyond. What can the art community do to better support female artists year-round, day in, day out?
I think there is some great actors really focusing on female artists, or convincing collectors to or presenting to collectors some female, non-binary, transgender artists, and it will take time also, because artists, the main issue, and we see it's actually on the top tier of the market, where we see that it's dominated by male artists, and I think it will take time for the market to correct this issue. But I see some great actors and collectors really committed on making this changing. So I'm very positive and hopeful that we'll see a shift happening in 2-3 years. What is really great with our ecosystem is that's a very new one. So all these main actors have actually a great impact, and because we are also in a niche market, so every little action they take has actually a big in this ecosystem. So and I know some of the top collectors are very committed to it, so I'm very hopeful that in some time we'll see great evolution on that front.
Got it. I know that you've also been teasing this forthcoming project in the generative art space. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's really exciting. It's something we've been the whole team been working for more than a year, and it goes with our new strategy to be very to have a lot of engagement within the generative art movement. And so we are going to launch a new Gen Art program in which that will be powered by Artblock Engine. It's just a huge honor to be partnering with Artblocks. I'm a fan myself, and I think they've done an amazing job in innovating and creating this whole new ecosystem and this whole new creativity for the artist and these tools. But so we launched this Gen Art program that will have every year only 2-3 long-form generative art sales. So it will be extremely curated. Every time we take 4 months to develop it, to work it, and it will be brought to market in a very fine art way with exhibition, videos, a proper education about the works, a big focus on all our traditional collectors who've shown interest in conceptual, in generative art, etc., trying to onboard new clients into this new medium. And we couldn't start actually, and she's a female artist, and I'm very, very happy with that to inaugurate this Gen Art program with Vera Molnar. She's 99 years old. She's like the mother of generative art. She's been all her life seeking for like the first one to use the latest technology and innovating and pushing the boundaries. And when you look at her career, it's full of like different periods depending on the new tool she was using. And now she looks at what the blockchain and the creative coding and the long-form generative art can provide to making this new body of work. She's been partnering with a great artist I love as well, which is Martin Grasser, who's very known in the generative art space. And this sale will happen at the end of July. It's a whole. She's like, it's fascinating because in the 1980s there is a video of her, an interview where she says that her dream is to have a machine that look at all her work she ever made and to create the works for her. And this machine would be called Vera Molnar. And we are not doing that exactly, but half of it, in a sense that this project is a combination of some design she's made herself, and then the algorithm will create some design based on the design she's made. And there will be this duality in each output. There will be a sort of a fight of a duality between her and what she called the machine imaginer. And that's like a notion, a concept that was super important through her whole career. And so she was amazed. Like, we spent a lot of time at the beginning explaining her what is doable with this new technology. And progressively she came up with this protocol that was fitting the limitless possibilities of things we could do with this new technology, and while pushing again a new body of work that is in line with our whole career. So it's a major news for the generative art, because she's the number one. I don't like to say that because there is other artists super important of that period, but she's the artist who really who've been influencing so many young artists we know today, like Tyler Hogg, Dmitri Cherniak, and with the advancement she's made in the 60s, we couldn't be here today. So I'm super happy to present that to the generative art collectors, and yeah, so that will be the inauguration of our new Gen Art program.
Wow, that's super exciting. And that also kind of marks a shift, like leading more into some like primary sales versus just secondary as well. Yes.
Yeah, I think primary sale is really new to us, but we've been doing a lot actually working directly with the artists in our natively digital sales. It was mainly working consigning works directly from artists. It's new, and that's also something you asked me about. How did we evolve through the past 2 years? How did we learn also from our mistakes? And it goes also with getting the right resource in managing, or not managing, but like working directly with artists. Very different working with artists rather than with collectors. That's like, and for me, it's a huge honor to be working directly with artists. It's usually the role of a primary market gallery, not an auction house. But in this new ecosystem, we've placed ourselves also very into the primary market. So with this new program, yes, we are really at the beginning of from the brainstorm to the conception of the project to the go-to-market and the strategy and the selling and the marketing extra. We are part of the whole process, so it's super exciting.
Awesome. Very looking forward to seeing more from that front. give us a little bit of a glimpse into the future. Obviously it's a super exciting program. What else is next for digital art and NFTs at Sothebys?
Yes, we are very committed to digital art. We are looking into many different aspects we can innovate. It goes with the digital art, but then we also investigate into other categories, luxury, sportswear. We have like a great department of sportswear. We achieve records when selling some very important collectibles, and to find out also how can we use this technology into our existing and physical collectibles and art business. It goes with how we can use the NFT as a certificate of authenticity, how we can use the digital representation of a work to improve the buyer or the collector experience. There is many elements like this. We try to understand how we can really improve with this, improve our existing business with this new technology, which is still experimental in many fronts, but I see a bigger future also on that one.
Very cool. Well, look, we have our last segment, bullish or bearish, rapid fire. Gonna get your takes, your hot takes on some topics. Let's kick it off. Bullish or bearish AI art?
Of course, I'm bullish. Of course, I'm I love how new technology is impacting the art. And similarly to generative art, it is a fascinating new territory for artists that needs many work, a lot of education. Like it's still super early for many people to understand what it is, what's the quality, the artistic value of it. But it'll come together. It's like no innovation came in overnight. So I'm pretty sure we'll get there, and I'm also very exciting. I'm about AI art, and I will at some point want to do a curated sale just on AI art and try to educate people to it.
Very cool, very cool. I'm sure the AI community will be happy to hear that. Bullish or bearish early crypto art?
Of course, I'm bullish, and I'm bullish in the timestamp in provenance. That's one of the big innovation with this NFT technologies, that timestamp doesn't lie. But I think we also need to be careful, and it's important to be extremely selective. For example, without some of this very early crypto art, if we think of a CryptoPunk as coming from this category, long form generative art may not happen without the CryptoPunk because of Snowfro claiming them, the idea of doing art block. These are very little connections and details that makes where we are today, and so we can say that it maybe started from the CryptoPunk, and then we can go before Ethereum and pre-Ethereum blockchains. This is where we need, I think, to be careful. There is some super important works. We saw the first NFT ever minted, McCoy. That's a iconic historic work, and then there is also there is a notion in the traditional art where if a work is too much restored, like an old masterwork, a work that is 600 years, if it's restored more than and altered more than 75%, we can't consider it as original and by the artist. And it's difficult to put this notion back into a token, but with the wrapping, and I think it's super important to have an important understanding of what it is to wrap a pre-Ethereum on Ethereum, or to and also how how it is documented on the blockchain, on the metadata that this is the original work from a certain date, and what because the number of information is key actually in making this work sustainable.
Yeah, great points. Are you bullish or bearish on representation of NFTs and digital art in traditional museums?
Yeah, bullish. I think we just saw a first dive from a couple of museums, and they've done it very well. The LACMA, the Pompidou, and a couple of others museums that went into it. It will help a lot in educating a wider audience to it, and to get also some credit from traditional collectors. I think a big traveling exhibition by a major museum defining all the different movements, artists, aesthetics, innovations, going from maybe the beginning of computer art and like the web art, the glitch, the showing of like all the different movements will help a lot actually in educating like a bigger audience to it.
All right. Last but not least, bullish or bearish generative art?
Very bullish, and personally, I collect contemporary art as well, traditional works, and I sold a few of them to be able to buy also more generative art. And I display everything at home. I print when it's NFTs. I buy also some 1960s works by Bouhanna and other pioneers from the 60s. And to me, it's like a whole new movement that is growing. And I think the only fact there is this concept of randomization of the way the computer, the algorithm can have an impact on the output, and we saw it with the boost. That's the magic of the algorithm, and not like it's not directed by Dmitri Cherniak directly. And this whole conceptual element, I think it's super interesting, and comes back to conceptual art, to Marcel Duchamp, to all these artists who really wanted to break with the traditional way of making art and to push the boundaries to the definition of.
Boom, there it is. Well, Michael, appreciate you taking the time. Always good to chat art with you, and looking forward to everything Sothebys has coming.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, take care. That was a great conversation. I really enjoyed learning more about Sotheby's new generative art program and Michael's perspective on the movement, as well as what he's seeing from the traditional art market as it slowly warms up to digital art and NFTs. We obviously have a long way to go, but it's encouraging to see sales like Grails demonstrating the enduring value of digital art, particularly in this challenging market climate. If you enjoyed this episode and enjoy what we do, would encourage you to head to your podcast provider of choice and leave us a review. We love the stars, we love your feedback, and each review you leave helps surface what we're doing with a wider audience. Thanks again, and we will catch you next week on the NFT Now podcast.